Right guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. In this one I'm just going to be showing you how to install a 1x11 GRX 812 rear derailleur to your bike. So let's go ahead, let's run through the steps. So here we have the derailleur, the RX 812. So you've got your barrel adjuster there, where your cable goes into. Then your pinch bolt, it's a 4mm for the pinch bolt there. Then you've got your clutch. So on is up there and then off, so when you're fitting it leave it to the off position when you're fitting it. And you've got your mounting bolt there, 5mm hex there to go onto your hanger like that. Then you've got your adjustment screws, you've got your high screw there, your low screw there, and then the B adjustment screw is that one there. So that's those. That's how the derailleur looks, like that. And then when you install it on the hanger, so your hanger comes through basically and hits on that notch there, the peg that's sticking out, so it rests against that peg there. So it doesn't go in here or anything like that or wherever, it goes against that notch there like that when it's mounted on to your hanger. So we'll go ahead, we'll run through the steps on fitting it. So what we got to do is get a 5mm hex on there like that, and then screw that onto your hanger there. So all I'll do is screw it on, and then we just hold it up like that as we screw it on. Just get it going, get it started a few turns in there. Make sure you're not cross threading it or anything. Put a bit of anti-seize on there as well before you put it in. And then as you screw it in, just hold it up a little bit, then just let it down, and then that means, see that bump that I showed on the back of it, a hit on the derailleur, hit on the hanger, like that. So you know it's in the right place, and then when you do it up, make sure it is touching in there, behind here, they're touching the hanger. So all you got to do is just hold down on it a little bit while you're screwing it in. And you know it's going to be, that is actually making contact with it. And then when you've done that, just get your torque wrench, just torque that up, say 6 to 8 Newton meters is adequate on that. Just give that torque, and that's that installed. So now we've got the derailleur on the hanger. What you want to do is look directly behind, like this, at the derailleur and the cassette. And what you're looking for is, if you hold down on the derailleur, so it's hitting like that, what you're looking for is the guide wheel, which is the top one there. You want that underneath there, the 11 tooth. So you want it underneath, just slightly towards the hanger, if anything. And as you can see there, if I do that, that is under the second one in, so it's not in the right place. So to adjust that, what you need to do is get a 2mm hex and go on your high screw, which is that top one there. So with it held forward like that, and you're looking behind, if you turn it, you can see if I'm turning that anti-clockwise like that, it's moving the guide wheel over like that underneath the 11. So once you've got it underneath, obviously if you turn this up clockwise, it moves it back over that way. So what we're doing anti-clockwise moves it underneath here, just you want it towards the outside of the teeth on the 11 tooth, like that. So that's the high adjustment done. And then to do the low adjustment, which is obviously the opposite, 40 tooth in this case, just hold the derailleur forward like that, and then when it's held forward, you can push across on it like that and see where it is. And that, in this case, it's under about the third one, like that. So to adjust that, it's the opposite. So it's the low screw, which is the one down here, to adjust it. So again, if you hold it over there like that, then you can adjust it. So if you move that clockwise, it moves it over that way. So again, anti-clockwise, and obviously it moves slowly. So just turn it, keep turning it until it goes underneath the largest at the rear. So turn that like that. Now it's, if you hold it over till it stops, you can see it's underneath. May not look it on camera, but it's underneath the 42 at the rear, like that. That's all we've done. There's no cable involved, we haven't got the cable hooked up, anything like that. We've just done that, like that, hold it up there, do the high screw, then hold it over, do the low screw like that, and look directly behind it when you're doing it. And that's those adjustment screws set. So next thing, we got the cable through, like that, ready to go through the barrel adjuster. So a couple of pointers here. Make sure before you hook this up, it doesn't matter if the shifter's new or used, whatever, make sure that you shift down. The shifter is shifted down to the 11 at the rear. Just check that before you hook this cable up, otherwise you hook the cable up and then you change in gear, changing up, and you'll wonder why you've only got like half the gears. It's because the shifter wasn't in the right place to start with, so make sure that is. And then with your barrel adjuster, if it's new, that this one is, but just make sure that the barrel adjuster isn't wound right in, so all the way in to the stop. Make sure it isn't wound right in. So you want to wind, if it is, make sure just wind it in till it stops and then back it off a couple of turns. So wind it in clockwise all the way, and then just back it off a couple of turns anti-clockwise to make sure it's not all the way at the bottom. And then that goes down through there and out the bottom like that. And then that goes in there, and then slacken your pinch bolt off a couple of turns, 4mm, and then the cable just passes through there like that and goes out towards the front. It goes through the pinch bolt like that. And then just pull it through like that. Now when you go to hook this up, tighten the pinch bolt down onto it. Make sure when you pull on this cable, now this is a new cable so it's long enough, but if you've got one that's a bit shorter you can always get a pair of pliers or use a pair of pliers even on this, and I'll show you that. Just hold the very end here where you're going to be cutting most of this off, so it's not going to matter. So you just hold on with a pair of pliers on there to pull on it when you do the pinch bolt up. So I'll just get a pair of pliers and just show you that quick. So all I've got is a pair of pliers, just pinch the cable like that at the end. Now make sure when you pull on this cable, just pull towards the front of the bike, so you're pulling it sort of in line where the chain would be to the front chain rings. Don't try and pull it at an angle or anything like that, just in case it moves the rear derailleur when you're doing it. So obviously if you pull on that tight, and then at the same time you're pulling on it, snug down your pinch bolt at the same time, like that. So just got hold of it, then you can let go of the cable. You can always redo that again if you weren't happy with it. All you do is undo your pinch bolt, pull on it again, make sure it didn't move or anything, and then obviously after you've done it and you're happy with it, make sure you snug your pinch bolt up. You can torque that up if you want to. Snug it down tight so it's not going to move, so the cable doesn't slip or anything later on. And then just double check again behind the derailleur that the derailleur didn't move or anything, so just check, obviously it's underneath the 11 tooth again, the smallest one. Just make sure that it didn't pull over when you was doing the cable and accidentally move the derailleur slightly, because sometimes you can just move it without realising and it ends up out of position. So just check that before you move on. So we've got the cable hooked up, so the next thing we do is go up to your shifter and then shift across as though you're going up to the 40 tooth, largest in this instance. So if you look directly down from above, Might be hard to show, but I'll try and show it anyway. Say there's no chain, you don't need one on there. You can see there, if you look down to set it up roughly, then you click across and you can see if it's going to be in line before you start. So you make sure you've got all the gears like that, so you know when you put a chain on where it's going to be roughly. And when you shift all the way over, so I'll shift all the way across, right across to the 11 at the rear like that. So before we put the chain on, make sure when there is roughly, doesn't have to be exact because you can adjust it with the chain on in a minute, but just make sure that it's near or as close as possible to underneath the 40 tooth in this case, like that, before you bother putting the chain on. So what we'll do then, we'll get the chain fitted on here, and then we can do the fine adjustments then, just with the barrel adjuster if it needs any. Right, so as you see, we've got the chain on now. So we checked it roughly, obviously without the chain on, just make sure we had the smallest and the largest on the shifter. So now we've got the chain on, we haven't cut the cable or anything, that's still full length, like that. So what you want to do now is just shift across with the chain on this time, from the 11, so you just try it in the 11, make sure it's alright in the 11, like that, so you can see. And then just shift across, obviously make sure you keep an eye on this piece of cable here, because it can get interfered go into your wheel. So what we do is I'll shift it all the way up to the 11 now, to the largest, sorry, on the rear. So when you're shifting across, if it gets to a point where you go across like this, and say it gets to, I don't know, the second one in, like that, and your guide wheel, which is top one here, is trying to make contact with the cassette, then that's because you just need to adjust your B screw, but it should go across without hitting it. But I'll show you the B screw adjustment anyway, just so you're aware of that. So what we do is we shift over and I'll just show you that B screw adjustment quickly. So with the chain fitted, what we do is shift across underneath your largest at the rear, and then have a look, see what the gap is like for the B screw adjustment. Should be enough so the chain passes between, obviously, your guide wheel and the teeth on the largest sprocket there. Should pass cleanly through there, you see that, like that. So to adjust that gap, you've got your B screw, which is there, I showed earlier. What you do is you turn that, if you wind that in clockwise, it makes this gap in here bigger. So if you haven't got a gap or you've got a massive gap, clockwise makes the gap bigger, and if you've already got a too large a gap, anti-clockwise makes this gap smaller here. So like I said, you just want a gap about the width of the chain so it passes cleanly through there and doesn't interfere with anything as it's going through, like that. So it comes off the guide wheel and vice versa onto the cassette cleanly without getting fouled up or anything. So now you're happy with your B screw adjustment, what you can do is obviously your barrel adjuster, that's for the fine adjustment. So like I said, we know we've already got the 11 and we got the largest, like that. If you was having problems, say you were shifting across and you got to, I don't know, the second one in, and it was just picking up the chain but it wouldn't quite get onto the largest at the rear, it was just sort of half in between, it wouldn't go up to that, then you could use your barrel adjuster then to get it up onto the largest one. So just by adjusting your barrel adjuster, all you're doing is adding a little bit more tension to the cable. That's all it's doing basically. So say you was in the middle of the cassette somewhere, or the fourth one up or something like that, and it was just skipping a little bit between them, then just leave it in that gear and keep pedaling, and then just make some fine adjustments to the barrel adjuster. Don't go screwing it one way right in and right out the other way. You just got to click it a bit at a time, a click at a time, just to iron out that roughness in it. So I'll just demonstrate it just so you're aware of what it does. So I'll get on there, I have to ignore the cable, I'll just try and hold that. So say if I'm turning that, as you hear now, it's nowhere near right. It's going like that. It's not making it up onto the 11, making it up onto the largest one, sorry. So it's just getting stuck in between. That's because I just adjusted it and effectively sort of messed it up in a way. So like that. That should be, the shifter is shifted to the largest, but it's not on there, if you see what I mean. So get it back on there. All I'm doing is turning the barrel adjuster anti-clockwise, and that adds a bit of tension to the cable. So now it's up on there, and you know not to go too far. So it's just, so if I turn it clockwise again until it starts messing about like that, and then if I go anti-clockwise a few clicks like that, just to get it to go on there, and then just go a couple of clicks more like that. As you can see, it's on there now, as it should be. So you can back pedal and everything, and the chain doesn't come off like that. Now all you do is shift down, try the other gears. So once you're happy with the gears, then you can cut the excess off your cable. So if you put it into the largest like that at the rear, and make sure that you just snip the cable so as it's not interfering with the spokes when you cut it off. So all you do is snip that off, and then just put your end on it like that, stop it fraying. Like that. So I'll just run through a couple of things with you. So the high and low adjustment screws, all they do is position it under the smallest and the largest at the rear. They don't do anything for the adjustment in between that. That's all they do. So when it's fitted, you don't go adjusting them, because it doesn't do anything to that. It's just under when you're initially putting it on, to make sure the chain will be underneath and running on the 11, and for this case the 40. Make sure it's in the right place. When the cable's hooked up, you've got the full reach then between the two. The B screw only adjusts the gap between the guide wheel and the teeth on the largest sprocket. That's all that does, the B screw. The barrel adjuster is your fine adjustment between them, and just all it does is add tension to the cable. That's all it's doing. You're just tensioning the cable up basically to allow yourself to fine adjust it between the cogs. So if you're somewhere in the middle of the cassette, you might have a problem here with it just slightly running out, then you can just adjust it as I've shown. Or if you're on the largest, like I just showed the demonstration of what it does by turning it, just click it a bit at a time. Now on these derailleurs, obviously you've got the clutch, so when I was installing it, you got the clutch off. You put the clutch on, and that just makes it so as when you're on bumpy surface, the clutch being on, you don't get the slapping of the chain, what hits into your chain stay here, then the chain's bouncing all over the place. That's what it's for. So if you was on a nice smooth road and you was riding it, you wouldn't need the clutch on. You could just leave that off. If you was going to go off-road or any bumpy terrain, you could put the clutch on and it'd stop that, the chain bouncing all over the place and hitting into your chain stay, especially if you had a carbon bike or whatever. So that's what that does, the clutch. But say you leave it off to carry out the installation. So I hope you found the video helpful. If you did, remember to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more cycle related content. Till next one, ride safe, and I'll see you then.